Hi, it's Carol Salter here reading her novel, Witch on the Warpath. Last chapter, we left Hearty in the tunnels beyond the fairy portal, facing a very intimidating grey cat. Let's see what happens this time. Chapter 24, Missing. The cat finished speaking, letting his sentence hang in the air like a time bomb. Moving aside, he ran one claw along the tunnel wall, creating that awful blackboard screech and leaving a white scar on the red bricks. "Oh," was all Hearty could think to say. "I wasn't prying, just enjoying the beautiful music," he stammered on. "Ah, a music lover. Good. We like music lovers, don't we, boys?" The cat leaned over, looking back towards his tail. Hearty stared past the cat to see 4 lean brown rats waving pencils from paw to paw like they were looking for a fight. Hearty swallowed again. "I don't want any trouble," he offered, trying to plead his case. "Oh, there won't be any trouble," the large cat interrupted, his accent moving from refined middle class to East End. "My crew will sort you out very fast." Yes, well, I can see," began Hearty, sweat breaking out on his forehead. "You can," interrupted the cat, smelling Hearty's fear. "That's so good of you. So you won't mind if I—" "Wait!" shouted Hearty, as a huge paw, claws outstretched, swept towards him. The paw stopped in mid-swipe. "You can't just kill me," he howled. "I won't tell a soul. We were only waiting for Shine to return and—" The cat interrupted him. "Shine? Did you say Shine?" asked the cat, searching Hearty's eyes for honesty. "Yes, Shine. She told us to wait here for her." "Well, why didn't you say so before, old boy?" replied the cat, his accent returning to the home county's dialect. Hearty nearly wet himself as a huge paw continued to descend towards him, the claws sheathing as they came. "Any friend of Shine's is a friend of the Mice Voice Choir." His paw landed light as a feather on Hearty's shoulder, where the cat squeezed him like they were family. "Really?" asked Hearty, holding himself up by leaning against the wall. He wiped the sweat off his brow and slid to the floor, exhausted by his near miss with death. "Yes, of course, dear boy. Come on, get up. I'll take you back to the fairy portal so you don't get lost again." Hearty considered telling the cat that he hadn't been lost to start with, but thought the better of it. Together, the two of them, with the brown rat gang trailing behind, headed back to the portal. The cat chatted like they were old friends. Finally the cat asked, "And who's us then, old pal?" "Us?" repeated Hearty, his mind still reeling from his close encounter with death. "Oh, us," he replied, catching on at last. "Us is Onk and me. I left Onk in the portal, him being too big to fit in here unless he's angry." Hearty watched the expression on the cat's face change to a worried frown. The penny dropped as Hearty realised he'd had an ace in the hole all along if he'd but known. No one would attack him with Onk close by. This was confirmed by the cat's reaction to his next answer. "Onk?" the cat asked, wariness edging his question. The rats looked up at their leader for reassurance. "Yes, Onk. He's a city troll." All four of the rats squeaked and jumped high up into the air in fear. One of them, taking the initiative, ran off in the direction of the portal, his squeak echoing down the walls. A few seconds later he was back, breathless, and nodding to the cat whilst pointing in Hearty's direction. "Well, we'd better be on our way, boys, hadn't we?" The feline choir master, making a rapid decision to leave Hearty well alone. It was his turn to be afraid as he called over his shoulder to his rat gang. He turned towards the dark west passage, shoving the rats before him. Glancing back over his shoulder one last time, he called back to Hearty, "Tell Shine the Tenor Monday says hello." With that, he and the rats vanished into the pitch-black darkness. Tenor Monday, thought Hearty, relieved, as he squeezed back through the gap. Strange name for an even stranger creature. Lenny was nursing his new injuries, a bruised neck, sore left wrist, and very tattered ego. He'd hoped Gristle would leave him alone once he agreed to join her in the search. She'd warned him to stay close unless he wanted severe pain. Both of them knew at the first opportunity Lenny would bolt, putting as much road between himself and the horrible Miss Gristle as possible. The two of them rode to Canterbury on horseback, Gristle remaining averse to flying. At Gristle's insistence they rose at dawn, changing mounts several times at fairy livery stables to reach Canterbury in 2 days. Lenny couldn't stand upright after the first 8-hour stint, but Gristle didn't seem to have any trouble. She also never paid for their mounts each time they obtained fresh horses. The stable hands were absolutely terrified of her. They trembled in her presence. Lenny surmised some might have fallen foul of Gristle before and had probably been transmuted into rabbits. Lenny found it hilarious when he discovered Gristle couldn't fly. He never let on to her, content to snigger behind his invisible hand when she wasn't listening. "Are you sniggering?" Gristle hissed at intervals along the journey. "Me? What? Oh no, I wouldn't do such a thing," lied Lenny, caught unawares. "If I catch you sniggering, I'll take your nose off and stuff it up your bottom," she threatened. That stopped Lenny sniggering fast. He didn't so much as titter when her horse stumbled and almost threw her into a massive smelly cowpat. She stared round at him as it happened. How did she know where he was? Lenny was unnerved by this phenomenon. As far as he knew, she was the only person who'd seen him in his entire life. The novelty of someone observing Lenny was rapidly wearing off. He was desperate to be invisible to everyone again, including the revolting Miss Gristle. She'd taken him off guard when she'd erected that limitation barrier, without telling him either, cheek of the woman, using an invisibility shield against an invisible person. That's so unfair. The nerve. If she is a woman, Lenny muttered, not totally convinced. She's most definitely is a witch, and one of the worst I've ever met, and I've met a few. I remember Hildegard the Horrible. She was a nasty piece of work. The things she did to hedgehogs didn't bear thinking about. She went insane too, Lenny reminisced. Was carted off to the local DGH. He made reference to the deranged gentlefolk home in Eastbourne. There were many of these establishments up and down the country. Fairy DGHs were disguised institutions situated inside human hospitals, right under the very noses of hospital management. It enabled the homes to use a lot of the hospital facilities like laundry and catering, etc., It was the main reason why NHS hospital trusts couldn't stay in budget no matter how hard they tried. It doesn't make sense, the chief executive would grumble to his senior finance officer. We have 200 people as inpatients. How can they eat and drink as much as 300 people when they're supposed to be ill? 50 witches, wizards or warlocks eat a great deal when they're mad. Poor man, didn't stand a chance at balancing the books. What NHS executives didn't know is that fairy medics used food as one of their standard strategies in distraction therapy. If you're eating all the time, it's very hard to concentrate on casting spells and hexes on people. Great wizarding feats are nigh on impossible with a mouthful of sausage and onions. Hildegard was under lock and key in Eastbourne DGH, and to Lenny's way of thinking, Gristle should be joining her. I can hear you thinking out loud, my little worm, hissed Gristle again. Lenny shuddered, catching up with the fast-moving Gristle. He didn't want another blast from the back edge of the invisible shield, keeping him pending. An hour or so later, Shine appeared at the ferry portal between the station platforms, smiling at the pair of lost travellers. I've sorted it, she said, grinning at Hearty and peering into the gloom for Onk, who was nowhere to be seen. Sorted what? Asked Hearty, more worried than before. He hardly knew this sprite. She could have sold them out to whoever was following them. He hoped he was just being paranoid and that he hadn't misjudged the beautiful Shine, because her gorgeous, voluptuous, scintillating... Hearty? Hearty! Called Shine from a distance, somewhere upstream in his head. Come back! Shine tickled the ends of Hearty's wings to rouse him. His wings shivered at her touch. What? Who? When? Mumbled Hearty, coming back from wherever water sprites send young tree elf brains when they're overcome with emotion. Let's go, Shine commanded, as soon as Hearty was back with the animated once more. Go where? Hearty replied, disorientated. Why were his wings shivering? And what had happened while his mind had gone travelling? This thought made his wings shiver even more. Here we go again, his mind said. Stay on track, Hearty, stay on track. Ignoring the state of Hearty's wings like it happened every day, Shine went on to tell Hearty about the long-abandoned system of small-gauge railway tunnels which ran under the town of Ramsgate. The tunnels were boarded up, long forgotten, and lost to memory by all but a handful of local train-spotting humans and fairy enthusiasts interested in Thanet's local history. "OK, let's go," he echoed, not knowing what he'd agreed to in the slightest. He turned and followed Shine out the doorway. "Bring Onk, then," she reminded him, getting a little exasperated at Hearty's vagueness. "What? Oh, yes. Come on, Onk, come on," called Hearty, turning and facing the dark behind him. Onk came. With him came hundreds of cobwebs, swarming with loads of spiders running this way and that. He was chewing on a week-old dead mouse like it was a sticky toffee with a tail, a last-minute dessert. "Oh, yuck!" exclaimed Shine as Onk ambled past her. Together the three of them rambled, or flew, down Station Approach Road towards Ellington Park for the second time. "So, we're here, back inside the park where we started. What next?" asked Hearty, thinking maybe Shine was loonier than a box of frogs. "I know it's around here somewhere," Shine twittered, while flying over the grass in ever-increasing circles. Cecil, my friend, told me about it a while ago. Course I didn't believe him at the time, till he showed me the earlier tunnels, Shine explained, examining a nearby patch of faded grass, nose to blade. Who's Cecil? Hearty asked, trying to sound relaxed about the whole situation. In truth, he was becoming more and more concerned, mostly about the number of people aware of him and Onk. Keeping Onk a secret was fast becoming an impossibility. It's complicated, Shine answered, deliberately avoiding eye contact. He's a friend, and I trust him. Besides, I haven't told him about either of you, so your secret's safe if that's what you're worried about. Who is Cecil, then? Hearty asked again, with more command in his voice than he felt. He had a feeling there was more to the elusive Cecil, and Shine was evading his question. Shine sighed. She had to tell him the truth. Straightening up, she faced Hearty, and looking him in the eye, replied, Well, if you really must know, Cecil's a slug. A slug? Shouted Hearty, his voice so shrill that Onk paused in his search for more green parrot feathers. Shine's answer had taken Hearty by surprise. He'd been expecting her to say a wizard, maybe a warlock, perhaps even a gnome at a push. A slug? He repeated, his astonished brain trying to take in the information on board. A giant magical slug, if you must know, continued a defensive Shine. He's a very good friend of mine. There's nothing he doesn't know about tunnels, and you're lucky he knows about these. She wagged her index finger in front of Hearty to emphasise her point. You're going to trust Onk and my life to a giant slug, Hearty declared in total disbelief. A slug? He persisted. Yes, a slug. Now will you please stop going on about it? Do you want my help or don't you? Shine interjected. Her eyes, full of attitude, were fierce and determined. Hearty looked into a pair of very stormy blue-grey eyes and realised whatever else he'd done, he'd just upset Shine big time. A person who was helping them without any thought for herself, because she was kind and caring. She was that type of person, and he'd insulted her. I'm sorry, he tried to apologise. I didn't mean that you can't have a friend who's a slug. It's just that... Oh, forget it. I'm beginning to think we're doomed. What's one more slug on the list? Hearty stared at the ground in complete loss. Living adventures was a great deal harder than writing about them. Shine took in Hearty's little boy-lost look, with his sad, wide green eyes and the turned-down soft pink lips. Her heart went out to Hearty. Cecil really is very good and kind and gentle. He wouldn't do us any harm, honestly, she added, trying to relax Hearty's shredded nerves. She could see the situation was getting too much for the poor exhausted tree elf. Trust me, she said, her voice light and sweet. I'll see you're both safe. There used to be an entrance to the tunnels back at the train station. The standard gauge railway used to go down through it to the old seafront station. I found out the opening this end has been sealed with metal, making it impossible for us magical folk to open. Instead, Shine had taken them back to the park, where they watched as she fluttered back and forth across the grasses, looking for something only she and Cecil knew existed. It's getting dark, she muttered as she completed another flight of inspection. If I don't find it soon, we won't be able to use this one tonight. Suddenly she squealed. Onk looked round, ready to charge any creature who dared hurt his Shine. It's all right, Onk, apologised Shine when she noticed his hostile, warlike expression. I'm sorry I startled you. Onk relaxed after Shine's apology. He was getting hungry. He wandered off to look under the gooseberry bushes which grew lining the park wall, just in case another parrot had decided to die in the last few hours. Here it is, she announced, pointing down towards the faded grass at her tiny pink feet. It was a large patch of pale grass, standing out because the rest of the grass around it was darker green. Nothing grows well where the soil is too shallow for its roots. It means there's something beneath. Our tunnels? Inquired Hearty. Yes, purred Shine, shining with happiness at finding her goal. Onk, can you help? Hearty turned to ask Onk, but discovered to his dismay Onk had disappeared. Stay tuned for next time. Goodbye.